Increasing your uphill speed will have a massive benefit on your overall average speed on off-road runs, trail runs and road running if it involves any climbing at all. I've previously discussed 4 different workouts that you can do, and in this video I'm going to go into more detail about how you can implement them in your plan. The reason that I'm focusing on uphill running in this video and the importance of it is because research from way back in the day, but also you'll know this yourself, is that when you're doing a run that has uphill and downhill in it versus a flat over the same distance, so if you're doing a 10k that's got climbing and descending but finishes at the same point as you start, so the elevation gain is net neutral, versus a flatter 10k, so same distance, the hillier route will be slower. And that's due to the fact that the time you lose in the uphill section of the run, you can't make it up on the downhill section. And there's been research back in sort of 1992, for example. I'll put a link to the research that I'm referring to down below, but that looked at that very particular element. Also, there's been more research looking at the different gradients, so if it's steeper versus a less steep gradient, your actual cadence, the number of foot strikes that you have, and ground contact time changes. So if you're always training on the same incline, doing the same repetitions, therefore you're going to plateau. So it's important that you mix things up. And that's the rationale for my progressive uphill training plan, to make sure that you get improvements in your all-round uphill running speed or walking speed. In research that came out this year looking at trail runners doing 2 loops on a set course, it was found that the uphill sections on the second loop were where the most time was lost. So as people became more fatigued, they lost more time on the uphill sections versus the first loop. So if you look at that, overall the loop time on the second loop was slower, but most of that time was lost on the uphill sections. So the flatter sections and downhill sections, less time were lost as people were becoming more fatigued. So again, it just highlights the importance of working the uphill element of your training. Now, I've already covered off 4 sessions that I do, and this video is very much about how and when you should implement them into your training plan. So first off, the sessions were hill sprints, hill repeats, alternating hill intervals between power hiking and fast feet, and then hill climb simulations. Now, I will say that in terms of utilising these, I would only use hill climb simulations if you're doing longer ultra marathons in the mountains. If you're doing anything up to about a marathon distance, then you should be fine just doing the first 3 elements of this training. I'll put a link as well at various points of the video to those other videos, so you can go and check them out, where I go into more detail about the specific climbing elements. But getting into detail about how you should implement them in your plan. Well, first off, I would look at doing the hill sprints. That's very much working at your top end power, and it's developing that climbing power essentially, so working on the strength within your legs, and that will help develop you into a better climber, and it will progress well onto the second stage, the hill repetitions. Hill repetitions are slightly different, so they're looking more at VO2 max and working on that element in cardiovascular. So whereas the first sessions are very short and the heart rate won't be getting up in that sort of 8 to 10 second interval, with the longer hill repetitions, you're going to be working the heart rate more, and the cardiovascular system is going to be working harder in those ones. So it's working the energy system slightly differently. Moving through, I then go on to the alternating power hiking and fast feet repetitions, and that's because they are longer, less intense, and it's about moving through, so working again the body in a slightly different way. Also, the great thing about those is it targets 2 different areas, because it's fast feet and it's also power hiking. As I mentioned at the start of the video, research has shown that depending on the gradient of the hill, people's cadence will automatically change, and the ground contact time will increase or decrease depending on the gradient. So by doing that interval session, it has 2 different elements in there, and that's a fantastic element to introduce because it works those 2 different energy systems, and it's all about getting more specific as you get closer to your race. Looking at it in a little bit more detail and implementing these, I would recommend maximum of 1 of these sessions a week. and that they should be progressing slowly, so you shouldn't be upping it massively from week on week. So by that I mean, if you did 8 repetitions of, say, the hill sprints in week 1, the next week I would only go up to 10. The reason for that gradual progression is because these are very hard workouts. In addition, I'd make sure you have an easier day either side of them. So if you did this session midweek, say on a Wednesday, then the Tuesday and the Thursday sessions should be easier. They don't have to be complete rest days, but those would be your sort of recovery run type thing, to make sure that your legs are well rested prior to, and then also getting adequate recovery post doing these sessions. Furthermore, if you're looking to introduce these, I would try and do a minimum of 5 of these individual sessions, so 5 lots of the hill sprints before moving on to the hill repetitions, 5 lots of those minimum, again before moving on to the alternating intervals. And the reason for that is it will take a few weeks for the body to adapt and start getting the true benefits of these. Again, you don't want to be doing too many of them because you'll find that you plateau. So therefore, by mixing it up and moving, say, after 5, 6, 7 weeks onto the next session, it'll ensure that it's keeping things fresh and getting the body to adapt still and keep progressing. I also mentioned about the hill climb simulations. Now, the reason that I wouldn't be doing these if you were doing shorter distances is because ultimately this is more about working at a specific lower intensity and trying to recreate specific climbs of a race, which would be beneficial. But if you're doing a mountain marathon where you've got maybe 3 or 4 climbs, I feel that ultimately your time would be better spent focusing on the faster work, higher intensity efforts, as that's going to be more representative of your effort during the race. When you then start going to sort of, the 120, 150, 160 kilometer races in the mountains, then you're going to be power hiking those, and that's where the hill climb simulations come into their own and can be a real benefit. Also psychologically, they're a great boost if you're working through them one by one. So you map out, say, the 6 key climbs of your race. By working through each of those key climbs, when it comes to race day, you know that you've done them in terms of training and simulated those in training. Those are my key hill climbing sessions that I like to include in all my training plans. And ultimately, it's all about making sure you keep it progressive and also ensuring that you have an adequate rest before and after so you can maximise each of these sessions. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the TMR Coaching newsletter. There's a link to my website down below where you can sign up to that, and it's a weekly newsletter with top training tips. I'd be keen to find out what hill climbing sessions you've done. Is there anything that I've missed that you think would be a great addition to my hill climbing? Please leave a comment down below, and I will see you next time.